Okay, Karthik. So let's get started without any further ado. Before we do a quick formal introduction on my name is Mohammed Shoaib. I'm a cybersecurity trainer certified from EC Council. EC Council is the leading organization for trainings and certifications in the domain of cybersecurity. Okay, and the course, the demo we're going to talk about in today's class is Certified Ethical Hacking version 12. Now, this is a course specifically built for people who have never been introduced to cybersecurity and it's their first time to learn about it. Okay. And every year the version gets updated. So the latest version running right now is version 12. Okay. Now, there's a common misconception among students that hacking and ethical hacking are one and the same term. But let me clarify that first by defining both these terms. So when we talk about hacking, it is the procedure of trying to gain access to information systems without the permission or the knowledge of the person owning those systems. So in simple words, when someone says I've hacked your phone, it basically means I've got remote control of your phone. I can remotely access the data on it. I can delete the data on it, or I can sell that data because I have complete access over it. Okay, so there's complete modifying and accessing permissions. Now, this is done without the consent or without the permission of you who owns the phone. Okay, and this is usually done for the hacker's benefit. And sometimes hackers are so mischievous, they can even do it just for fun. Okay. Now, if hacking is such a malicious task, why do we have a course called ethical hacking is the second question. And how is this different from hacking? How is this getting ethical in the first place? To define that, ethical hacking is a procedure of trying to find vulnerabilities. Now, this term vulnerability is something that you'll hear throughout the course. A vulnerability is a loophole, a weakness, or a flaw in the security of the information device. And by utilizing this loophole itself, hackers try to get access to the complete device. So our job in ethical hacking is to find these vulnerabilities in the information systems with the consent and with the permission of the person owning those systems, okay, in order to report them back to the organization. Now, once you find a vulnerability and report it back to the organization, they're going to apply the security update for it. And once the security update has been applied, that vulnerability gets removed, okay, and the hacker has no more possible ways to access that system. So thereby with ethical hacking, you're trying to increase the security of the infrastructure rather than causing any harm. So hacking is something which is malicious and ethical hacking is something which protects your device from these malicious attacks. Is that clear, Karthik?
Okay.
Right. Now, depending on these two definitions of hacking and ethical hacking, you have the categories of hackers. So you have three types of hackers. Basically, first there's someone known as a black hat hacker, gray hat hacker, and a white hat hacker. Black hat hackers are also commonly called as cyber criminals who perform hacking for their own benefit without asking for consent. On the other end of the spectrum, we have white hat hackers, also called as ethical hackers, who find the vulnerabilities in the organization systems, abiding by the laws and policies of the organization, and trying to increase the security of the infrastructure. And in between, there's a third category called gray hat hackers. Now, these people are a mixture of both black hat and white hat properties. Like a black hat hacker, they don't ask for permission first. But once they find a vulnerability, they report it back to the company like a white hat hacker. But there is a minor catch here. They do this in return for a bounty. A bounty is something which benefits them for finding that vulnerability and reporting it to the organization. So they demand a bounty from the organization. A bounty could be a reputational reward, a financial reward, anything which benefits them for finding that vulnerability and reporting it back to the organization. Okay, so in return for that bounty, they find the vulnerabilities and report it back to the company. Okay, so you could call them like freelance hackers who find vulnerabilities online and report it back to the organizations. Now, all these three types of hackers, whether you take black hat hackers, gray hat hackers, or white hat hackers, they perform hacking or ethical hacking in a certain procedure. That procedure is called as hacking cycle or cyber kill chain. It constitutes of 5 important steps, which are termed by the EC Council. So EC Council has designed a very well-rounded hacking cycle, which constitutes of 5 important steps. So the first step is called as information gathering. It can also be called as reconnaissance or footprinting. Second step is called as scanning. It can also be called as enumeration. Third step is gaining access. Fourth step is maintaining access. And the last step is reporting or clearing traces. Now, let me briefly discuss about each of these steps in our demo today. And again, this is going to be constitutive of the complete course as well. So the whole course is going to revolve around these 5 important steps. So the first step is information gathering. Now, from the name itself, you can figure out this step involves the hacker or the ethical hacker to gather as much data as possible about the target organization. So again, one important point to note here is this information is gathered passively. What I mean by passively is that the organization has no clue that someone is trying to get information about them. This information is secretly obtained by the hacker or the ethical hacker from the internet. Okay. Now the main question is, what kind of information are we trying to gather at this step to perform hacking? So that information is listed out here. So before you try to find vulnerabilities in the systems, you need to find these information so that you can find a path to attack on those vulnerabilities. So you need to find the IP addresses or the range of IP addresses of the servers in the organization. IP addresses are nothing but a number given to each server in the organization as an identity. So we need to find that address for each system. Then we need to get the who is records, which tells you who is hosting their servers for them. When was it first updated? Okay, when was it first uploaded? When was the website first uploaded on the internet? When was it last updated? When will that website expire? All that information is contained in the host records. Then the DNS server records, getting all the subdomain and domain information and the IP address information. Then the employee details. What are the contact numbers of the employees? What are the email addresses of the employees? What are the fax numbers for the organization if they're still using fax? Okay. What are the usernames and passwords of the employees if they got leaked on the internet? What are the operating systems they're using on their servers? Whether are they using Windows servers or Microsoft servers? All this information is obtained in the first phase. Now, if I show you a very basic example, I can go to my browser. And in the browser, I can search for a website called DNS Dumpster. Now, this is one of those gold mines from where you can get the DNS server information for any organization. So if I click on this first link, and let's say if I wanted to find the DNS server information for Netflix, so I can just give the domain here, netflix.com. And if I click on search, this gives you the complete DNS server information for Netflix. So firstly, it tells me how many DNS servers are there for Netflix. There are 4 DNS servers, which contain the rest of the information that is displayed on this page. So DNS servers are servers which give you a linking between the domain name and the IP address of that server. Okay, so these IPs are very crucial for a hacker or an ethical hacker to perform penetration testing or hacking. Okay, so again, these are the 4 DNS servers which contain this rest of the information. So in the DNS servers, you have MX records, which tell you how many mail servers does Netflix have. So Netflix has 5 mail servers at the moment, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And these are the IPs of those servers through which all the mails for Netflix are being routed. Scroll down much further. These are the host records, which means what are the domains of Netflix and what are the subdomains of Netflix and what are their exact IP addresses one by one. Okay. And if you scroll down much further, this gives you the complete network topology. So this is how Netflix organization is connected to one another. So all the servers of Netflix are listed out here with their IP addresses as well, one by one. So this gives you a complete image of Netflix organization and their infrastructure. Okay, and when you perform penetration testing, if you're a hacker or an ethical hacker, you need to find loopholes in each of these servers. And if you find anywhere in any of these servers, if you find a loophole once, that is more than sufficient to find a vulnerability to attack all the devices. Okay. So this is what basically information gathering is, trying to gather information about a certain organization without them knowing about it. So Netflix now has no clue that someone is trying to gather all this information about them, all this DNS server information. This is a completely separate entity from Netflix. Okay, and this is a completely different organization, a website, DNS dumpster. And this has information about any domain. Okay, so again, this is basically what is information gathering. Now, this is only one website. We have tons and tons of other websites to gather the rest of the information. After information gathering, we have the next phase, which is scanning. Now, this is a phase where you try to make active connections to get some extra information. In the information gathering phase, we got it passively, which means from other third-party sources. In scanning, we contact the organization directly, we hit their servers directly, and try to retrieve some extra information. To define scanning in a much better way, I can divide it into 3 parts. There's network scanning, port scanning, and vulnerability scanning. In network scanning, you try to figure out in the organization how many active devices are there. So how many servers are they using? How many routers are they using? How many firewalls are they using? How many IDS, IPS, intrusion detection systems or intrusion prevention systems are they using? So I'm trying to get a complete network map of their local internal organization. Once I get that information, then we perform port scanning. which is where we try to figure out on each of those devices, what ports are open. And on those ports, what services or what applications are they using on their servers. So once we know what applications they are running, then we perform vulnerability scanning to figure out on those applications, are there any weaknesses that we can attack on? Are there any loopholes or vulnerabilities that we can find to attack those servers? Okay. And during this phase, we'll be using a very important tool called Tenable Nessus. This is the same tool that is used in organizations to perform vulnerability scanning, and quite an expensive tool actually. So let me show you. Oh, not this one, this one. As you can see, if I click on Nessus Expert and if I click on buy, it's around $6,000, and that only for 1 year subscription. Okay, $6,000 roughly translates to around 4,81,000 rupees just for a singular tool. Okay, but again, it's quite an important tool. So it is necessary by every organization to have a proper check of each and every vulnerability on their systems. So basically, this tool can scan for vulnerabilities automatically on each and every device in their network, whether it be web servers, databases, routers, firewalls, whatever it be. It can test each and every endpoint and scan each and every endpoint and tell you automatically what vulnerabilities or what misconfigurations are there on each of those devices. Again, luckily for us, there's a trial version as well, which you can use for 16 devices, 1/6. Okay. So with that trial version, I'm going to show you how to run this tool, how to understand this tool, okay, and how to find vulnerabilities in your organization. So this is the same tool that is used in real time in organizations as well. Okay. After scanning is done, now once you know what the vulnerabilities exist, the next phase is gaining access, trying to figure out how to attack on those vulnerabilities. So up to the first two phases, information gathering and scanning, we have got all the information required to initiate this gaining access phase, where we try to attack each and every endpoint on those vulnerabilities. Okay, so let me list out all the contents first. Any questions or doubts up to this part, Karthik?
Yeah, no.
Okay. Now, when we talk about gaining access, the first concept in gaining access is system hacking, where in system hacking, we try to figure out how to crack or bypass any Windows operating system password. So if you have a Windows 7 or Windows 11, any version from Windows 7 till the latest version, I'm going to show you how you can crack the password for that system if it is locked. Or let's say it's your own system and you've forgotten the password for some reason. How do you access the internal files without the password? That is what we learn in system hacking. Then comes malware attacks, where we learn what malwares are basically. So again, firstly, to define malwares in a very short sentence, it comes from combination of two different words, malicious softwares. Okay, so any malicious software is called as a malware. Any software which harms your system is called as a malware. And there's tons and tons of categories in them. There's viruses, worms, trojans, spyware, rootkit, whatnot. So we'll practically learn how to create these malwares, how to defend our system from these malwares, and how to detect them if they're already existing on our systems. Okay. Then there's a bonus concept called malwares advanced. If you have any knowledge on Python programming, this is like an added bonus for you to understand how to create your own malwares using Python programming. Now, this is not included in the course. I've just added it as a topic, as a bonus topic for students. So I'll be sharing a complete video lecture for this, okay, which you can go through at the end of the course. Then there's network penetration testing, where we learn how to find vulnerabilities on each and every network device. So in a network and organization, there can be multiple servers, DHCP servers, DNS servers, FTP servers, SNMP servers. So we'll find how to find vulnerabilities on each of these servers and what attacks can you perform in these networks. Okay, sniffing attack, man in the middle attack, denial of service attacks, or hacking Wi-Fi routers. All these belong to network pen testing. So using these attacks like sniffing attacks and all, we can capture the data of other victims in the network. So if someone is sending or typing a username or password on their device, we can actually capture that packet in the local network and try to analyze and get those credentials from them. So those all belong to sniffing and man in the middle attack. Then you have denial of service attack, where you can completely shut down servers. So how do hackers shut down servers? How do they make servers inaccessible for other clients? Is what we learn at DOS attacks or denial of service attacks. Then comes hacking wireless networks, where we learn how to hack Wi-Fi routers and crack the password for Wi-Fi routers. Then you have social engineering, where we learn how do hackers create fake login pages, whether it be social media pages or bank login pages or office organization login pages. How do they create these fake login pages How do they send it to victims and get their credentials? So these attacks are commonly called as phishing attacks, okay, where you try to fool victims into entering the credentials in fake websites and getting their credentials. So we learn how these attacks are performed. How do we distinguish between a fake page and an original page is what we learn in social engineering. Then comes web application pen testing, where we learn what are the common vulnerabilities in websites. So how do hackers attack databases? How do they inject malicious scripts in databases? How do they inject scripts in websites and get access to the backend servers? How do they break authentication and log in as other users? How do they upload malicious files to servers and again get complete access to the server? All that is learned in web application pen testing. So a few common vulnerabilities are SQL injection for databases, cross-site scripting for injecting malicious JavaScript code on websites, broken authentication to log in as other users, okay, and file upload vulnerability where we learn how to upload malicious files to servers, okay. Then comes vulnerability assessment, where we'll use a very important tool like Metasploit framework. So whatever vulnerabilities you find, you need a tool to attack on those vulnerabilities. And that tool is called a vulnerability assessment tool. You're assessing the vulnerability by attacking with it. Okay, for that we use a tool called Metasploit framework, which is very popular in organizations. And we'll learn about the same tool and we'll learn how to attack on those vulnerabilities. And then finally comes hacking mobile phones, where we learn how to perform Android pen testing. How do we send malwares to Android phones and remotely get access to those Android phones is what we learn in hacking mobile phones. So if you have observed one thing, we're covering each and every endpoint. We're talking about system security, we're talking about network security, we're talking about wireless security, we're talking about web application security, and also about mobile security. Each and every endpoint in an organization is covered. After now, this is the main core of the subject. After this is done, we have two small topics left out, which is reporting, maintaining access and reporting or clearing traces. So in maintaining access, what we do is we learn how do we maintain persistent connections. What I mean by that is if the user or if the victim restarts the system or shuts it down and starts after a very long time, okay, how do you still maintain a connection with that device? How do you still access data once you've attacked this device is what we learn in maintaining access. And then finally, we have reporting or clearing traces, where we learn how do we generate a report in an organization with all the vulnerabilities like a white hat hacker, or how do black hat hackers remove all the evidences. So all the first four steps are quite similar for any kind of a hacker, white hat, black hat, any hat. What differs is the last step. If you're a white hat hacker, you report the vulnerabilities back to the organization. If you're a black hat hacker, you remove all the evidences. That in simple terms is called as clearing traces. So we're going to learn practically each and every step mentioned here in a real-time scenario with real-time tools. Okay. Now, if you're not belonging to an IT sector, or if you don't belong from the technical background, no worries about that. We have a few prerequisites which we'll cover ourselves. So first thing, before we dive into these advanced concepts, we'll cover a few topics like networking basics, like what are IP addresses, what are IPv4 addresses, what is a subnet mask, what is this DHCP server, what is a DNS server. All the basic networking concepts are covered here in this first concept. After that, we learn about virtualization, where we'll talk how do we set up a lab. Okay, so how do we have a practical lab for us so that we can concentrate on the practical aspect of the course? How do you perform all the practicals? How do you perform all the attacks in a real-time scenario? For that, we set up a lab using a tool called VMware. After that, we learn about basic Linux and Windows commands, because throughout this course, we'll use a very special operating system called Kali Linux operating system. So you can access that from kali.org, the official website. Now, this is the most advanced penetration testing distribution or operating system. This is used for various information security tasks, such as penetration testing, security research, computer forensics, and so on. So we need to download this operating system and install this OS in our systems. So I'm going to show you how can you install this operating system in your device and run it. So we'll use a tool called VMware for it. As you can see over here on my desktop, I have this application called VMware. I'll show you how to install this VMware application on your device. And once it is installed, how do you run the Kali Linux on it? As you can see, this is the Kali Linux operating system. Just a second, let me boot this up. And this is booted. So as I've mentioned, we're going to learn how to install this Linux operating system on top of our Windows operating system. So what I'm running on my system is Windows 11 actually. On top of this Windows 11, I have an application called VMware, which allows me to install multiple other operating systems. So this is what Kali looks like. The reason why we're using this is because it has all these tools for information gathering, for web application attacks, for database attacks, for password attack, for Wi-Fi attacks, each and every. Okay, these tools come pre-installed with Kali and they're not available for Windows operating system. So we'll learn how to install this lab setup. Okay, Kali. Again, you can install any operating system in this VMware. So along with Kali, I've also installed Windows 7. As you can see, this is my Windows 7 target system. So you can run multiple operating systems in one singular device. Okay, so this is basically what virtualization is, trying to install multiple operating systems in one singular device. Okay, so we'll have a practical lab setup like this, which you can use whenever you want to, 24/7. Okay, on your own device. So yeah, this is a basic overview of the course, Karthik. Any questions or doubts on your end? Again, one last thing to mention is this course duration is for 45 days. You'll have classes from Monday to Friday every day for 1 hour each. And there's a new batch starting tomorrow at 8 p.m. So you can join that batch. You can join the first few classes as demo again. We'll talk about the networking basics in tomorrow's class, the first class. Okay. And yeah, that's that. Nothing further. The course is priced at 8,000 rupees, which you can pay in 2 installments, I guess. So for the payment details, you can contact the institute once. You might get the institute's contact details on the official website. If you have any technical queries regarding any of these concepts also, here's my number. You can contact me on this number here, 768-0069768. Okay. So yeah, that's that, Karthik, nothing further. Any questions or doubts your end?
So what is the basic system requirement we need to practice?
For hardware configuration, minimum 6 GB RAM at least, and hard disk space of 250 GB. Recommended would be 8 GB.
So by using Windows, we cannot hack.
Sorry, we're using what?
Coming to real time, by using Windows.
Okay.
So nobody can do hacking.
Oh, you're talking about just by using Windows, we cannot perform hacking, is what your question is?
Yes, yes.
Not so easily, Karthik. There are a few tools, but not as advanced as tools in Kali operating system.
Okay, so by using Kali only, we can do hacking.
Yes, it's much simpler because the tools are specifically built for Kali operating system, so we can run them easily in Kali. In Windows, again, you would have to install emulators and then download the same tools which are built for Linux operating systems.
So a non-ethical hacker, so how he will do hacking? Okay, by using Kali Linux, he will use, or you need any other tools to download?
Kali Linux is more than sufficient, actually. Again, there are alternatives as well. Okay, so there's alternatives like Parrot OS. Parrot is also a Linux-based OS, which is also built for security testing. So if you go to your browser and search for Parrot OS, as you can see, Parrot Security. This is also a Debian flavored operating system, which is for cybersecurity reasons, for hackers. So again, all these are different alternatives. You can use Kali's operating system, you can use Parrot Security operating system. But again, most of these are Linux based on. Windows is not that perfect for hacking. It is not built for hacking. Okay, it's a client operating system. These operating systems are specifically built for pen testing or for security.
So for a hacker, you need a Kali Linux operating system. Okay,
sure.
With that, he can hack any organization, you're saying?
Yeah, depending on the vulnerability. So if an organization contains that vulnerability, any organization can be hacked using Kali.
Okay.
For hacking, one thing you require very importantly, one condition is that system needs to have a vulnerability. And once it contains that vulnerability, that weakness, you can attack on it. Okay, using Kali operating system. Doesn't matter what organization it is, whether it be a very small organization or even a multinational company. Depends on the vulnerability. Does not depend on what tool you're using. Okay.
Okay. If an organization using that Tenable software, so you can so that organization cannot be hacked.
You have to, yeah. Just because they're using Tenable doesn't mean they are unhackable. Along with that Tenable tool, they need to again check for vulnerabilities and remove those vulnerabilities from time to time. Tenable tool
that it will say the vulnerabilities where it is.
That's it. Yeah,
where it is not secure.
Yeah, it tells you what system vulnerabilities are there in their organization. Now the organization needs to act upon those. So it needs to know, okay, we have to remove these vulnerabilities so that our systems are secure. If they are missing out any one simple vulnerability there, even if they're using the SS tool, there's no use over there. They know what vulnerabilities exist, but they have not acted upon it. They have not used the preventive techniques for it. So that is where, if there's any human errors, it's still possible to hack organizations. That's how
Yeah,
cyber threats.
okay.
Another option,
So
another thing is sometimes there's something called a zero-day vulnerabilities, which means some vulnerabilities which even this tool cannot detect yet, Nessus tool. So they are specifically built by hackers. So once after the attack is initiated for one organization, then this tool understands, okay, this is a new vulnerability. I have to add this to my list of vulnerabilities. And then there's an update from the Nessus tool to all the systems, okay, telling that this is a new vulnerability in the market. You have to check for this as well. Okay, so that is also one more possibility. Hello.
okay, okay. So certified hacking you're saying. So who will give the certificate?
Again, from the institute, you'll only be getting
About
a
this
course
course, you
completion
have kept like
certificate. Yeah, coming to your question. So as I've mentioned,
oh
from
they
the
will
institute, yeah, go ahead. First, complete your
institute will
question.
give the certificate.
Let me, is that your question?
Yes.
Yeah. So as I've mentioned, the institute will only give you a course completion certificate. That is not the certificate from EC Council. If you want this
Okay.
certified ethical hacking certificate, you have to write an exam for that separately. So after the course is done, you can go to the EC Council's official website and register for an exam there. Okay. That exam is around $500, but you will only have one attempt to cracking it. So if you're planning on writing the certification to get that certificate from EC Council, do let me know because I'll be assisting you for that. I can assist you to with a few mock exams so that you're prepared to write that certification. Okay.
To get job certification is important.
No, that's not mandatory. So for getting job, a
Man.
certificate is not
Okay.
mandatory. It only certifies that you have done this course from the organization. Okay. Doesn't matter where you do it from. If you're skilled enough, getting a job is not that tough.
So additionally, so for to get job, so additionally we need a Java, Python knowledge.
In cybersecurity, not necessarily. For this course, we have no necessity for Java or Python or any programming knowledge. If you're going for some much more advanced job roles like cyber forensics or code analysis, for such job roles in cybersecurity, you have a necessity for coding. In some departments in cybersecurity, there's no necessity for coding at all. For security analysis, okay, for penetration testing, in such job roles, you don't require any coding knowledge. But when you talk about, so say there are certain job roles which require coding and certain job roles which don't. And the course we're doing right now, certified ethical hacking,
Okay. So
has
by
no
this,
required for coding.
okay. So by this knowledge, we can crack the job as a fresher.
Yeah, definitely.
So by keeping 2 years or 3 years fake experience, this
2 or
knowledge
3
is enough
years
to crack the
might be
interviews.
too tough. 2 or 3 years is again, this is only for a fresher's job role. Okay, so up to 1 year is good enough. For 2 or 3 years, you would have to do some other extra courses as well, at least some pen testing job role courses. So along with CH, I provide another course called penetration testing, web application pen testing. So if you're planning on keeping a fake for 2 or 3 years, I would recommend going with some advanced courses as well. Okay, up to 1 year, CH is sufficient. So if you've just passed out from college, and if you're planning on diving into cybersecurity, CEH is more than sufficient. Okay, up to 1 year's experience. After 1 year, if you want to apply for 3 years, penetration testing is very important because in an organization up to 3 years, you won't be with the CEH job role. You shift to higher job roles for penetration testing and so. Okay, so if you're planning for applying for a fake, I would recommend going with both these courses. So you can do CH, and after CH is done, you can apply for pen testing course. Okay, this is something for an advanced course for people who want to put at least 3 or 4 years of experience, which in this course we'll talk about the pen testing for websites, what vulnerabilities exist in websites and how do you attack on all the vulnerabilities and check for a website's security. So this is my specialization. So again, this covers top 10 vulnerabilities that exist in any websites, and we learn how to remove those vulnerabilities and how to check for them in the first place. Okay. So if you're planning on writing for, applying for 3 or 4 years of fake, I would recommend going with some advanced courses as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you will cover Linux also?
In the CH, we cover Linux as well. As you can see, Linux and Windows commands.
Okay. So for advanced course, so we need any programming language?
For web application pen testing, we would require the basics of HTML and JavaScript because that is the programming languages on which websites are built. So again, I'll be sharing
Okay.
resources for that. As we progress with the course, we'll talk about HTML and JavaScript as well, basics of it, which is sufficient to get started. Okay. But again, there's a prerequisite where you have to need to have basic knowledge on HTML and JavaScript. If not in depth, again, basic is sufficient. If you don't have that as well, I'll be showing you the resources
So
which you can learn and which you can again gain knowledge from sufficient for the course.
okay. So coming to real time. So what we will do in
As
job
I've mentioned,
in
when
the
you
company.
talk about in a real-time organization, you if you're a complete fresher, you get pushed to SOC job roles, Security Operations Center job roles. Your whole infrastructure of security is divided into two parts, SOC and NOC. SOC stands for Security Operations Center. NOC stands for Network Operations Center. In SOC, if you're a fresher, you get pushed to the monitoring job roles. So you start monitoring a network by using tools like SOC tools, Splunk, Alien Vault, and so on and so. So we'll be covering about those tools as well in the course. So as you can see, Splunk for SOC analysis. So what you do is you basically monitor the network or the organization for malicious attacks. So if there's any malicious packet, that triggers an alert and you forward that alert to the analyzing department. So your job role in freshers role is just monitoring the network 24/7. Now, once you monitor the network, if you find anything malicious, you try to raise a ticket for that and send that ticket to the analyzing department where they analyze that packet. Okay, they try to understand whether it's actually a malicious attack or if it was just a false positive. If it is a false positive, they ignore that. But if it is a malicious attack, they send that to the next team, which is firewall writing, rule writing, signature writing team, where they write a rule to prevent such packets in the future from attacking the organization. So that is what happens in a real-time organization. You use tools for monitoring the network and analyzing the network and trying to prevent the attacks which we learn in the course. So whatever attacks we are learning here, we try to understand how to figure these attacks out, how to prevent these attacks from happening in our organization using these monitoring job tools. Okay, that is what happens in real-time scenario.
Yeah. Okay. So coming to the salary part in market, how much they are paying?
Again, if you're a complete fresher or if you're applying for monitoring job rules,
Fresher,
you
fresher.
get around 35 to 40,000 per month, starting around 30 to 40K average. Okay, with experience, with 1 or 2 years of experience, that goes up to 80 to 90,000. It depends on your
Yeah.
skills, depends on the courses that you're doing, depends on the job role you're applying for. Also depends on the company as well.
Yeah. Okay. Presently, I'm working as a USIT recruiter.
As a sorry, what?
So coming to technically, presently I'm working as a USIT recruiter.
US IT recruiter.
Yes.
Okay,
So so I want to move to IT side. So coming to Java or Python, I don't like coding actually.
right.
So that's why I'm looking for this type of cloud security, ethical hacking, or something.
Okay. How many years of experience have you had, Karthik? Since how many years have you been working?
So it is more than 3.5 years in this field.
Oh, you passed out in 2019 or so?
2017, I am passed out.
2017 pass out. Okay. Okay, cool. No problem, Karthik. Again, this is a course built for you, as I've mentioned, for people who are completely new to this domain. So if you plan on shifting to cybersecurity, this is the only pathway. You have to go with CH first, learn the fundamentals first of cybersecurity, which are covered in CH. And after that, for applying for higher job roles, you can have to go with the web application course. So these two courses take around 60 days or 65 days to complete. CH alone is for 45 days. Okay, on top of that, this is for another 25 days. Okay, so covering both will take around 2.5 months easily. So after that, you can start
So this
applying
is
for.
online course. This is the okay
Yes,
by online or offline classes
online
we can
itself.
learn.
There's no offline train. I am situated in Andhra Pradesh in Vishakhapatnam. So I usually teach online itself.
So then how I should practice?
Again, as I've mentioned, this is how we have the lab setup as well. I'm going to share all these tools to you. I'm going to allow you to, help you to install these tools on your system. And along with those tools, you're going to
Okay.
practice. You have a lab setup on your device itself. Whatever I replicate on my system will be replicated on yours as well. You have recordings for each class. You have the notes for each class sent. Okay. you can go through the recordings step by step, okay, after the live session, and try to practice this out on your system. As I've mentioned, the lab setup will be created on your own device itself. So you will have a lab setup 24/7 to access on your own system. Hello.
Yeah, okay.
Right.
Okay.
Any other questions, Karthik?
Yeah, as of now, nothing.
Okay, cool. So yeah,
So
that's
just
that, Karthik.
only
Yeah.
I don't have. So I have like 3 years in this field. Okay, so I want to jump to different domain.
Okay.
So as a fresher, can I move or not?
Definitely. Again, people who have been working for the past 6 or 7 years in a different domain have shifted to cybersecurity, in my experience. So people from the mechanical department as well have shifted to, say, this CH, or ethical hacking department. So you already belong to the IT department itself. So it's not going to be tough for you at all.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Right. Sure. So yeah, that's that. Karthik, nothing further for our session. If possible, please join the session tomorrow at 8 p.m. where we'll cover the first networking basics part in tomorrow's session. Okay. You'll be getting a link on your email for the
Yeah,
8 p.m. class. Sure. Bye-bye. Have a good day. See you soon.
okay.